Hello, I'm Tim the TamBoTC channel. This is going off of my previous video that has a long-ass title. I didn't know how to title that video, honestly. I thought that was the best that I could do within that time and what I could say within that much in a title itself. I don't know how to word it. But when I was talking about the Man of Steel, I was going off of a YouTuber called That Sexy Nerd, who reacts to stuff, and he was reacting to a video of Nostalgia Critics. There are a bunch of times where I do like his input on stuff. I actually enjoy watching his stuff. I do think that the way he can approach stuff, though, can be aggressive, and sometimes at least, and that um, it's very forward, and sometimes it's weird because he does definitely put like some good perspectives and opinions and points into some of the stuff he says, but there are other times where he just kind of simplifies it down to a very simplistic, kind of not really well thought out parts. The one thing that bothered me was his Man of Steel thing, where he said that's right in the reaction to the Justice League Snyder Cut Nostalgia Critic review. That's why people like Man of Steel. It's not your daddy or your granddaddy's Superman. Here's simplifying it to just saying that without giving more input around that, even if it's in a different part of the video, which I'm pretty sure it's not. And like in other videos, which you would need the context for that video though, because then you're just lacking a lot of context and stuff. I wanted to go further into it because, say, there are people that I know that either don't know the older character but don't prefer the newer interpretation of a character, or people who do but do love the newer interpretation or even prefer it. There are different scenarios and stuff, different opinions and perspectives. And also think about like the majority of people, why certain things are divisive the way they are, or maybe why certain characters or interpretations of characters. Like, you don't see me trying to argue why Jared Leto is the best Joker. And I know it's an entirely different character and perspective and stuff, but there's a reason why people don't like Jared Leto's Joker. It's probably very similar, or different reasons, of course, why people might not like the Man of Steel movie and the characters in that, or just the movie itself. Why do people not like The Last Jedi? Or at least why is Last Jedi and The Last of Us Part 2 so divisive as it is? I don't think it would be divisive either way. And the reason I mentioned in my description of that previous video, the stupid woke whatever, like, I don't want any woke crap talked about, like, in this freaking channel. The only times I would mention it is for this scenario to say that I don't want to talk about it. And I don't give a crap, because those aren't the real problems, and I said it in the description of that previous video, where a lot of the real problems is the exploitation of a lot of stuff to kind of serve for their self-ego or their self-preservation and making themselves look good, or greed. And of course there are people who, other problems are like, they think they can be better than the original, they think they can be super artistic and amazing, that their stuff is so, like, it has that pretentious kind of presence I've talked about in the past, and they think they can be better than that previous thing. Or maybe they have a hatred for the fans, the fan base, or the source material itself, and they don't want to they want to make their own version that they think is going to be better than the original version or interpretations. But you get stuff like the Witcher series, for example, and how that turned out after a while. Like, those people didn't even like the source material and stuff. Same with like that Godzilla film that has Matthew Broderick in it. why do people not like certain characters or things? Look at some of the latest video game series like Halo, or look at that Lord of the Rings of Power series or something. Look at the interpretations of those characters, why people don't like those. I don't think it's all the time that it's a certain reason, like, oh, it's woke or it's not woke or whatever the frick, who gives a frickin' crap. I feel like that's not stuff you want to talk about, honestly, or bring up. I feel like not as many people you're going to gravitate to, because they're just going to look at you and be like, "Oh, the same shtick again, the same garbage that we've seen from a million YouTubers." It's better if you attach it from something that people can see as something more realistic and believe more. No, leave. Frick off. I said no. But I feel like it's more realistic to go about, or something that everybody can gravitate to when you talk about even though it's simplistic, it makes more sense, and it would probably attract more attention, honestly, than saying this or that is the one of another thing. Because it was more realistic that it would be out of stuff like ego or self-preserving their image, making themselves look good, or maybe some other, like, just exploitation of something. Maybe it's more realistic that someone would more likely do that, or maybe they have a hatred for that fan base or that thing that they're adapting, or they don't like in the first place, kind of like what I used the Witcher as an example, and the previous thing, frickin' Godzilla with Matthew Project. I forget when that came out. I would call it by the year, but whatever. It's not even Godzilla. People don't even call it Godzilla, really. Um, it was a good cartoon back then, though. But there's a reason why people, whether they shift their opinions or have different examples and stuff, will have different opinions and different perspectives on stuff, on why, or criticisms on why or why not they like a character or a thing, a movie, a game, whatever it may be. I think those divisive things, especially speak out. Like, for example, I wouldn't come here and say, "Oh, I don't like the new Superman," for example, or the new Master Chief, because it's not the old Master Chief, or it's not the way the old Superman was. No, like, I would have different perspectives and opinions on why, or criticisms of why I don't like that. A lot of my opinions aren't even directed towards that. And that's the funny part, because a lot of people hate the neck breaking scene, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, how does that connect to being the old Superman? Why are they trying to connect that to people hating it because it's not the old Superman? It's an action that he's doing. It's not who he is. It's an action that he's doing. Why are people trying to connect it to that? I don't understand that. Like, maybe I can see some people saying, like, that's not what Superman would do. Though Superman does, like, grab, in the original movies, he did grab Zod like he was going to break his neck at one point, which I think is on the thumbnail of Nostalgia Critics video currently, until he changes it. But yeah, it's like it's not that Superman wouldn't do it. It's all this other stupid things that people are talking about surrounding that scene, as well as, like, the chaos and stuff. Superman does get in situations where buildings and stuff are destroyed, but there are other times where not only is it not his fault a lot of the time, but also where they actually go out of their way to show that Superman goes and saves people more often, or prioritizes certain things. They didn't really do that with this version of Superman, and I know that's not. Once again, you can go to the argument of, oh, that's not what Superman does, but, like, why wouldn't he do that? Why shouldn't he? Like, it doesn't mean he has to be exactly like the other Superman. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like, if they're still trying to get across they're still trying to get across a very similar thing too in the story. So it's like, why shouldn't he? That makes no freaking sense. And they have the message of like the thing with his dad, Jonathan Kent, where he's like, oh, maybe you should have let those kids die on the bus. It's stupid. Like later, like the whole thing of that was kind of like, didn't it seem like it was trying to be like, oh, like maybe you shouldn't become a superhero and save people all the time. You should probably keep more secret. But no, he did that entire like the entire of that entirety of that goes away once he becomes Superman, and he basically goes and lives up to stuff, doing all that ridiculous crap that he does later. But then he's still like freaking smashing buildings and all that crap, and barely saving people in situations. It's like you already broke that freaking rule that Jonathan Kent was like telling you about. Is like, why would you not go any further with that? At this point, especially after you've already broken it. It's like then it just doesn't make sense now that you wouldn't do it. But yeah, like there's a bunch of different things. I hate that I have to talk about the Man of Steel fan movie with this stuff. No, it's not because I have a grudge or hate towards Angry Joe, even though my problem with Angry Joe is his blind love for that is so ridiculous. He is so, and it kind of feels like freaking I'm getting that almost that same vibe from That Sexy Nerd, where it's just like so ridiculously blinding that it's like basically trying to show off almost and say, shut the hell up, your opinion doesn't matter. Mine is the one above all. And I'm not saying that in the entirety of that is what they're trying to get at or say, but that's sometimes how it can come across. It feels egotistical. I don't feel like this is that bad, but I felt like it was annoying, the fact that somebody was simplifying it that much, and that is not how it is or how it should be. It is a bit ridiculous and over the top, and it's stupid. It's freaking stupid to witness. Like what? Like if you asked me why I didn't like the interpretation of the Master Chief, for example, like I don't like that interpretation. And he's freaking like he's not Master Chief, but he's also not Master Chief, a good Master Chief in that interpretation there. And then sometimes these series will overcorrect, like Rise of Skywalker and stuff. And yeah, sometimes that's to blame the fans. But also, they just didn't have a roadmap, and that was the only thing like to really turn to, because the stuff they did already was really stupid. Like, do you like that interpretation of Luke Skywalker? Do you like those Disney remake interpretations? Do you like that Jared Leto's interpretation of the Joker? Do you like that interpretation of Master Chief? And why? Give more reason than it's not your daddy or your granddaddy's Master Chief or Superman or Joker or whatever. It's like, that doesn't matter. There can be things that people don't like for the reasons they don't like them, whether it's related to that or not. And once again, like I said, it's not always like that. And it just kind of seems blind in this situation. And you can see why I was frankly kind of pissed about it, because it's like it's such a blind way of looking at things, and I wish less people would stop looking at it like that. Like, put more thought into why. Like, take for example, I've already said this before. The reasons I don't like, at least some of the reasons I don't like the Henry Cavill Superman, I just don't feel like he fits the part for me. I thought the suit was cool. I do like the suit. There are things I do like about his Superman, and I can see his Superman working. But a lot of the directing and writing around him felt so pretentious and Zack Snyder's style is just not for me. He has a lot of, like, the use of his imagery and stuff is just like, it doesn't make sense, but at the same time, it's like, even if it makes sense, it feels super pretentious. It kind of makes it hard to watch or absorb that product without it feeling so pretentious and full of itself. You can kind of see why, like, from that perspective, why I wouldn't like that version of Superman. Yeah, and there are other people who do that, a similar thing, where they have pretentious writing and stuff, even some directors I like. But I feel like the execution and the way they approach them is a lot better than what I've found from Zack Snyder's stuff, and why I don't like a lot of the stuff, more recent stuff of Zack Snyder. Not everything has to be attached to just it not being your granddaddy's or your daddy's Superman or Batman or whatever. It's ironic because, like, people ironically don't judge the different interpretations of the Joker and stuff. We've gotten the Heath Ledger Joker. That's so different from the comic book version of the Joker. Even Joaquin Phoenix. And look, they're freaking loved as hell. And we've got freaking all the different versions of Batman. And they used to get a lot of criticism before they even arrived in the roles, but people loved them. But people did give the chance to the Man of Steel, Superman, and they did give the chance to freaking stuff like that. Yeah, it did come out freaking with people mad at it and not liking it. But sometimes maybe there's a reason why, like legit reasons why people don't like it. And you can't really do much about that. Or there's other, I don't know, other interpretations people have and stuff. Other opinions and criticisms, maybe even ones you're not thinking about. I think the main point is when you say it because it's not your daddy's or your granddaddy's or whatever, it's frickin', or because it's not the old thing, it's not good. Apparently it's not good, or whatever the frick you say. That is simplistically why somebody does or doesn't like that thing. I don't think that is a fair way of looking at that, or trying to simplify down why somebody, I feel like it's almost like somebody trying to justify a very stupid perspective, in my opinion. And it's just, why? It's like, give us more than just that. That is not enough of an answer. You can use that answer, but it's still not enough, and you're not giving us. Both sides technically could not be giving us enough of an answer towards that. But goddamn, like, I just sick of hearing that. It's like, why do we have to hear this all the time? And they're not the only person. I've heard stuff like that with the Resident Evils, but there are people who have fair criticism. Look at Critical Nobody when he judges the Resident Evil remakes. He's at least giving a ton of input on why he doesn't think it's better, as well as he's giving input why the original is better than the new one. But he's also criticizing parts of both, or complimenting parts of the one he likes, but complimenting parts of the one he doesn't like as much, and then criticizing the ones that he loves. So there's still, like, for example, that's a good example of what to do in that situation, of like how you go about something. Not everybody's a critical genius and able to nail down every point that they can think of, but that's still a better example than just saying, hey, you only like it because it's old, or you only like it because it's not your dad's Superman. It's like, that's such a pathetic way of going about it when you only say that. And then I ask you, okay, well, what else is there? Are you going to have another answer besides that? Sometimes people will, and sometimes others. But I expect you to already have those others. I don't expect you to go to that thing right away and say, That's what it is. That shouldn't be your first response. Your first responses should be actual criticisms, not saying because it's old. That's just stupid. There's not a freaking enough going on there. Shut the frick up. Give me more. And if you don't have more, zip it. I don't know how else to put it. I don't want to come across rude, even though it's going to be looked that way. I mean, the internet. Who knows? But I'm not trying to come across that way. I just, like, even if I am, I'm pissed. I'm pissed. And you're rightfully pissed. I'm rightfully pissed. Why wouldn't I? So now you see my perspective. You're pissed the same way I am. I'm pissed the same way. You see now why. So, and if you can't see that, then why the frick bother? I don't know what else to say. It's freaking annoying. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Once again, like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to ever make somebody feel bad or whatever. You have the opinion you want. Still take what I said here with a grain of salt. I know that I can come across harsh too, and I hope I didn't come across sounding harsh. I don't want to be that way. I never want to be that way. And I'm sorry when I do. It's just really hard to approach certain things and how to talk about certain things. Sometimes you do have to get a little dirty just to frickin' get certain things across. And like, just like hearing people talk about frickin' woke this, woke that, I'm sick of people saying, oh, you don't like it because it's old. I'm sick of that argument too. I've heard that a lot lately. I've held back so long from even talking about that. There's been so many goddamn times I've heard that. So I've definitely been patient. And up to this point, I'm like, frick no, I'm done with that. I'm gonna speak my part. Why wouldn't I? I've held back this long. Why wouldn't I come out now? Why wouldn't I be the way I am with it? It's just like, I have a perspective. I have something I have to say. I hope that can contribute to the discussion. Whether it's positive or not, some people sadly gravitate mostly to negative stuff. That's kind of why I talk a lot about negative perspectives or stuff. Is mostly just I know that people do gravitate towards that stuff more, but that's not always what I want to do. And I remember when I was doing a lot of that stuff back in the day, I've had somebody who commented like, "Why are you being so negative all the time or talking about this kind of stuff, approaching this kind of stuff all the time?" Well, it's because either I am kind of pissed off about that thing, this is how I genuinely feel, or because, yeah, people do gravitate towards that, sadly. I don't always want to do that kind of stuff, but you see why. So I want to be freaking honest with that. So I don't know what else to say. Sometimes I'm just speechless on stuff and I don't know what to say. So yeah, I'm just refuting myself. I'm Jeff Goldbluming it up. But yeah, I hope you I guess yeah, I'm definitely Jeff Goldbluming it up. Frick off. I hope to do more Roblox stuff for you guys, and I'm sorry that one of my other Roblox videos is me talking about this. So I hope to see you next time. I hope to be in a more positive attitude and mood. I don't want to sound like the negative Nancy or that crap. And I'm sorry when I do. But yeah, like hopefully I have better things to talk about. There's been a lot of just sadly negative things. Look at all the games we got last month. The freaking that Kong game, King Kong game, Gollum game. What was that? Freaking Left Behind or something? I can't remember the name of that freaking garbage game. That was a complete scam. I forget. And then we got this year kicked off with the worst Battlefront collection, which, like, goddamn, Battlefront is not having a good time. And then we got kicked off also with the Suicide Squad game. It's like, goddamn. And that freaking new season that it has where it's, they massacred my boy, the Joker. See, that's another example. They freaking, of a bad interpretation of a character, Joker and Batman in that. So there you go. I do like the movements of that Joker. I just think the freaking design and the voice actor and the grind and everything else about that character freaking sucks. And it's just not worth it. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to contribute to the discussion or talk about. I was trying to be less aggressive in my previous video. This one, I am a little bit more, ironically, because I was talking about aggression earlier. But yeah, sometimes maybe they're doing it because that makes sense. But in my perspective, I am at least giving more. This is a very different video from that one, where that one's just like very simply giving a short and simple answer. That's frankly one that's just kind of petty and just not giving a whole lot of input, honestly. So I feel like that one is in the worst than like what I'm trying to deliver to you uh, through what I'm talking about. I don't know. It's really up to you. Once again, like I said, like you decide. It's your opinion, your perspective, whatever. Like I hated on the frickin' cyberpunk people. There are different people who can love or hate on something. I'm not a fan because I felt like that game is like I was pissed off at that game because it's like, why is everybody like treating that game as if it's the messiah of gaming? It's like, what the frick is wrong with you? It's like, it's not that good. Like, what is wrong with you? There's a plethora of problems, and I've had plenty of videos talking about it. And it kind of feels obvious, the problems too. Like, I felt like a lot of the problems were obvious, and that, like, how do these people not see these problems? And like, you have cursed knowledge, whether you believe it or not. But you can still love, and I've even said in those videos, you can still love that game. But this is like it's just my perspective, my opinion. Like, take it with a grain of salt. Maybe I don't say that part, but still. Like, I still at least try to lead with that, even when I might feel like I'm being a little harsh. But yeah, you can tell why some people are harsh, and that's probably another reason why he was harsh. But I felt like that was too simplistic, where I actually explained to such a heavy extent why. And you don't always need to explain that much, as long as you got a couple of things to say that are definitely like warranted. But to just use the same argument I've heard a million times, like, it's not, you don't like it because it's not the old thing, or you don't like it because it's not your dad or granddaddy's thing. It's like, I've heard that argument too much. It's getting freaking old. Piss off with it. Just shut the hell up. Seriously. Like, goddamn. Ironically getting old because you're making the same old complaint of something old. Is like, God, ironically that becomes old as well. And honestly, way more cringe. At least the old things aren't nearly as cringe. They're at least got good writing, good character development and story. And the other funny thing is, like, even though you complain about that, you probably would still like that or not like it. I don't know. I've watched a YouTuber who didn't even like the Monty Python stuff, but gets that loves other stuff. So who knows what you would like or dislike? Um, and I thought it impossible for certain things, but it's definitely possible to not like certain things. Like, it's possible for people not to like Weird Al, even though I've never heard a single person who said they didn't like Weird Al, or people not to like Monty Python or the Three Stooges, even though they are freaking geniuses of their time. And there's a lot of things they that if they didn't exist, probably wouldn't have existed themselves. We would have had other things. Or maybe there would have been, in a perspective of like if you're in another multiverse or something, like different older things that would be the equivalent of that. Then we would just have the same arguments or even different ones similar to what we do today. I don't know. This is an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, there's a lot of discussion to be had there. But to do the simple, annoying, same argument I have heard a million times at this point, I'm sure other people are also in agreement that they're sick of hearing it too, is the whole, it's you don't like it because it's old or whatever. That is not enough. That is getting old. That is cringe. That is stupid. Please piss off with that and never do it again. But I know you're gonna do it again. Because if other annoying things like the frickin' people who talk about woke crap still exist and are still everywhere, then of course that's gonna be frickin' everywhere. But at least I spoke my frickin' mind on it. But piss off. But also don't piss off, because I'm not trying to say that anything necessarily rude. I'm just sick of that argument. I guess that's the biggest thing I'm getting at by the end of this, is just I'm sick of that, hearing that. It pisses me off. It's annoying. It's everywhere. Stop it. Get some help. Just like Michael Jordan said. Get some help. Stop it. Get some help. But anyways, if you found something interesting or whatever your perspective is, you can still share. You have many ways you can say or do something without insulting somebody or throwing around like saying you're an asshole, this or that. Because I've had times where, ironically, I would say like why I don't like Cyberpunk, or why Cyberpunk's got so many these obvious problems when I was talking about that back in the day. And I just remember comments that would say, shut up, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're an asshole. And it's like they would sometimes do that, or they would sometimes give a constructive criticism, but at the same time they have to still be insulting you and calling you an asshole, a jerkwad, all that dumbass crap. It's like, you can do your criticisms and stuff without that, like you kind of forfeit your argument when you're freaking improving my point. Because one of the points I made was that I felt like some of the audience, not all of the audience, that's another thing I talk about, is not everybody within a audience or a fan base is necessarily as toxic, because some people like to necessarily say that, or conclude that every fan base and everybody within that fan base is toxic sometimes. But when that's not true, when the saying there's bound to be this or that exists, as long as that exists and you say something like that, you're always going to be wrong on that point. And I was saying how I felt like some people have been really ridiculous and very rude and stuff, and using the platform of Cyberpunk to freaking not only manipulate others and say that it's a better game and that your opinion sucks and all that crap, and that they're being rude about it. It just kind of makes my point, ironically, in those situations look right, sadly, because it's like I say that thing and then they do the very thing I said, and it's just like they become the very evil they sought to destroy, or the very evil that I was just talking about, the very stupid thing. And it's like, what the hell? You're just proving my point, ironically. I had somebody too, for example, where I made a long constructive thing where I actually my friend had a bunch of points he contributed to what I was going to say to a whole Jim Sterling video, and I just had this random person come on, and I have like a paragraph, and yeah, I sometimes do those paragraph long, but not always, And I barely do that anyways, so it's not something I go out of my way to do constantly on everybody's channel. It's something I only do in once in a very long ass while. And I had something like that, and somebody said, "Shut up, you're a child, you got grammar, you're dumb. You're not allowed to have an opinion and stuff." And it's like, ironically, that person had grammar, and they were saying that I must be a child. I'm just thinking, would I be a child with the way I constructed my freaking giant ass thing? I don't think a child would write that much, as well as, ironically, you are being a child because you have so much grammar, and it would be more likely that a child would write the shorter comment than the longer comment. Because a frickin' child wouldn't have that kind of attention span unless they're Griffin Gaming, which is pretty smart at, like, with some of his stuff. He's actually like I found him like very interestingly smart for his age. So there are kids aren't like that, but like, ironically, that thing that they were just saying I am, they were being as well. They were ironically being more likely than I am. And I know I'm not, because I know my age when I wrote that. So they were wrong anyways. This is freaking stupid. But yeah, it feels like that was the same kind of situations I had when I was talking about Cyberpunk back in those couple of months. It wasn't too long ago, of course. It was like September or whatever of last year. I don't know. Whenever the DLC came out. But yeah, it was freaking ridiculous. And I get things like that, and you can word things certain ways without having to be a jerk about it, sadly. So, like, I'm saying that now, like, you can have constructive feedback and stuff without having to add, like, rude insults or slurs and stuff, which I have gotten before. It's not necessary. It actually kind of, I feel like it tears apart your argument when you do that stuff, because it's like, it's not worth listening to this because they're just using it as a platform to be a rude prick. They're not taking it seriously anymore. Maybe they're taking it seriously in a different way, but not in the way that matters or makes sense. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say, and there's no cause for that stuff anyways. I just felt like that was something to contribute to in the discussion, even though I kind of got off discussion a little bit. But yeah, I might as well throw that all out there so that you know me and what, like, my perspectives on certain things are. But yeah, like, I don't want to remove people when they do that stuff. And I haven't always removed people who have done that stuff, but like, I feel like if people aren't going to freaking look at something in a smart way, or a way that's like they're actually learning, like, they're not kids always, so I shouldn't say they need to learn a lesson from this, but they do need to learn that that is not appropriate, and that the way they're doing things aren't good or nice, that it's not necessary. It's just like, oh my goodness, get out of here. But yeah, it's just those things are ridiculous, and I don't want to freaking remove certain comments, but just know that if there are comments, uh, that go too far with things, yeah, I would probably remove them. I would want to make sure that I remove them for a good reason, and not because I'm not willy-nilly. Not willy-nilly. If they're using it as a way to insult you or attack you or whatever, whether it's my audience or the other way around, it's the person being watched. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. You tell me actually what you think. Like, what would you think in my perspective or my situation? Would you remove those people if you knew uh, exactly that they were using it to insult or attack someone or to manipulate or whatever it may be? Would you would you get rid of those comments? Would you block those people? Would you whatever? I think in certain situations, like if you're playing a video game, of course, if somebody's harassing you and stuff, like, yeah, taking those necessary steps. But what do you guys think? Do definitely let me know. It is something serious to think about or talk about. And it's not always something I'm not quite sure how to approach. So, yeah, I think that's about it. This video's gone on long enough. So, I'll see you guys next time. Remember, if you did find something interesting or you liked the video, remember to like, share, and subscribe. The reason I'm playing this is I'm mostly just preparing stuff so that next time I play with my friend Dave, I'll not only be higher level, but I'll also be at a higher, what's the thing, rebirth, when next time I play with him. So that I'll have practically everything, and I think you mostly level from buying vehicles and stuff, so I have to get to that later. So yeah, but I will see you guys next time. And you have a awesome day or night, depending on where you live in the world. Bye bye.